May I speak in the name of the one holy and living God. Amen. This is a rather special Sunday, as it is the first Sunday in the church's new year, the first Sunday of 4 weeks preceding the Nativity of the Christ child, which we call Advent. Advent is a word that derives from the Latin root adventus, which means arrival, and it notes the arrival of someone or something of note in general use. And in the specific use, it notes, of course, the coming of the Christ child, of God, God's self in the flesh, that God might communicate through us and with us so that we might be drawn into deeper relationship and understanding with God. That's one level, but there's another level. And that's the level at which we are met by the gospel according to Luke. It is not just the coming of the Christ child, the historical event, it is also the arrival of the second coming of Christ. It is an apocalyptic vision of the end of the world that we meet on this first Sunday of the season of Advent. It is also on this Sunday that the concept, the word hope, is associated. And so we're already thrown into a bit of confusion. Like, how is it that this apocalyptic vision of the end of the world could communicate anything like hope? In 1979, my theological hero, Howard Thurman, preached here at the cathedral. And he used to open his sermons and close them sometimes with a short meditation called, I'm forgetting it, The Growing Edge. And The Growing Edge begins with this line: all around us, worlds are dying and new worlds being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. What Thurman was attempting to express in that rather seemingly mundane statement is that there is an ordinariness to endings and beginnings, an ordinariness to the apocalyptic way of seeing life, that perhaps every day, every single day, every passing moment are ceaseless endings and ceaseless beginnings, that there's an ordinariness, a nounness to this apocalyptic reality. Let's see what Jesus says. He starts off with this cosmic vision. There will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and on earth distress among the nations. Confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves, people will faint from foreboding of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. This cosmic vision of an entire universe collapsing in on itself, exploding. And then Jesus says, you actually kind of know this already. You know this change, this disruption. And he takes his listeners to a very real, very practical, seasonal example. He says, have you ever seen the figs on the trees and you know that summer is coming? There's an ordinariness to the signs of change, of life and death, of ceaseless endings and beginnings. And then Jesus says to them, but you know what? Don't worry about it. Because you don't really know. And you can't really see the time. So in that time, pray. Be on alert. Why is there hope in this vision of the end of the world, of ceaseless endings and beginnings? Why is there hope in this idea that all around us worlds are dying and worlds are being born? There's hope in this in part because we live in a world that we take as granted or for granted as the world as such. A single world, a global network, connections of goods and their markets, all of which need the exploitation of people's labor and lives in order to work. And we are all connected by this single rhythm of money and things and commodification and the objectification of bodies. That is the kind of single world in which we live. But what this gospel reading tells us, and what my dear, dear Howard Thurman is trying to teach us, that world doesn't have to be, and in fact isn't, the only world. It is the crime indeed, unfortunately, of our beloved faith that this singular idea of a world is the thing in which we live. It is sadly the crime of our own faith that worlds are crashed down to earth, whitened into ash, languages lost, cosmologies lost, ideas about what is possible and what is real and what is true and what is time and what is good and what is love. These things have been lost. But the beauty of this faith is that it teaches us to stay alert. To stay alert for the new ways in which life is attempting to show itself to us. This faith stands in judgment of the kind of world that even purveyors of this faith brought into being. That's the hope of an apocalyptic vision that is an everydayness, is that we have at our fingertips the opportunity to see life in its incalculability, in its bigness, in its beauty. And Jesus tells us that even when these things happen, that even when these worlds die, His word remains. That even though a faith like this whitened worlds into ash, the words of Jesus stand in judgment. And that's what we anticipate. We anticipate that judgment that will turn our hearts and minds toward a new conception of what is possible, of what is good, of what is true. In these 4 weeks, I want to challenge us to anticipate hearing those words of Jesus that will never pass away. To anticipate feeling those words communicate to us and in us. That place where the heart of Jesus lives, where the Spirit of Jesus lives. Anticipate being changed. Anticipate feeling your world become larger and more beautiful and more possible than ever before. Anticipate the coming of the one who turns the world, as our presiding bishop says, upside down, and so right side up. Amen.